My name is Harper Quinn. I'm 41 years old, a colonel in the United States military, and for the past decade I've spent more time on tarmacs than at family dinners. Maybe that was by design, maybe it was survival. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday. Heavy cream cardstock, silver lettering. Formal to the point of sterile, it sat on my desk at NATO HQ like a landmine, quiet, dignified, and designed to explode. The name on the front wasn't Harper, not Colonel Quinn, not even daughter. It was printed like an afterthought. H. Quinn. One letter, one surname, one quiet reminder that I was still being edited out of the story. Inside, no handwritten note, just a single typed line at the bottom of the invitation. Please behave. Not we miss you, not we hope you can make it, just a command. Like I was showing up to a war zone instead of a wedding. I stared at that line for a long time, not because I was surprised, I wasn't, but because it confirmed something I'd long suspected. I wasn't being invited back into the family. I was being summoned as a formality, a prop, a way for them to say, see, we tried. My aide, Lieutenant Navarro, passed by my office as I was turning the card over for the third time. He gave me that look. The one people use when they're not sure if they should ask. You okay, Mom? I nodded, but my voice betrayed me. Got invited to my sister's wedding. His eyebrows lifted. Is that good news or a tactical distraction? I smiled faintly, still determining. Because here's the truth. I hadn't heard from my mother in 6 years. Not after the promotion, not after the ambush in Syria that made national news. Not even after the Joint Chiefs cited my strategy report in a defense briefing. Silence. Not ignorance. Silence. I thought of Reagan, my sister, the golden child with the Pinterest-perfect life, yoga influencer, mommy blogger, family favourite. She posted curated gratitude while I pulled bleeding soldiers out of collapsed buildings, and somehow I was the disappointment. I wasn't angry. That part had burned out long ago. What I felt was colder, like stepping into a room you once knew and realising the furniture's been rearranged to pretend you never lived there. Still, I booked the flight, not because I wanted to be welcomed, but because I deserved to be seen. I packed my uniform, not to make a point, not to draw attention, but because it was mine. Every stripe, every thread, every silent scar stitched beneath the fabric. If they were going to pretend I was just the difficult one, I'd let the facts speak for me. I wasn't coming for closure. I wasn't even coming for them. I was coming to close the chapter. Charleston looked like a postcard someone tried too hard to make perfect. Spanish moss draped over white picket fences, cobblestone streets curved like secrets, and beneath it all, the humidity of memory. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Magnolia Room, a venue so polished it felt like breathing might scuff the floor. I arrived precisely on time, not early, not late. In uniform, simple, clean, commanding without effort. Inside, the room shimmered with champagne and chandeliers. A string quartet played something soft and expensive. Waiters in bow ties glided between tables like trained dancers. Everyone was smiling, that kind of southern sugar-dipped smile that's one eyebrow lift away from condescension. "Harper," my mother said when she saw me. She didn't say it with joy, just recognition, like spotting a mark on the wall. "You didn't have to wear the uniform, dear." I met her gaze, steady. "It's what fits." She frowned. "Try not to overshadow the evening. Reagan's worked hard for this." Reagan, my younger sister, floated across the room in a blush-toned designer dress, all teeth and posture. She kissed the air near my cheek and whispered, "Please don't make it about you tonight, okay?" I wanted to laugh. The irony, as if I'd been given any spotlight to begin with. I moved to the seating chart, names printed in calligraphy on thick parchment. Table 1, Reagan and Daniel. Table 2, parents of the bride. Table 3, bridal party. Table 4, 5, 6. Names, titles, spouses, +1s. I scanned the list twice before I found it. Table 11, H. Quinn, near the catering exit. I recognized the table, tucked by the swing doors, half lit, half seen. I walked toward it, heels soft on the floor. The place setting was off. The napkin at my seat was a slightly different shade of cream. Not white, not ivory, not matching. A small detail, but not a mistake. A message. Someone once told me war isn't won by grand gestures. It's decided in the margins. I sat quietly. The conversation around me buzzed. No one introduced me. No one asked what I did. One woman, a distant cousin maybe, leaned over and asked, "Are you with the venue staff?" I smiled. "In a way." As the toasts began, I folded my hands in my lap. Dad toasted legacy. Mom toasted grace. Neither looked at me. Then Reagan took the mic. "We're so grateful for everyone who came tonight. Even Harper made it, all the way from wherever she gives orders now." Laughter, polite, then real. I looked down at my plate, untouched. Have you ever been invited just to be ignored? Not in anger, just edited out like a smudge on a family portrait. Drop A in the comments if you've ever had to smile through being invisible, because I wasn't angry, not yet, but something in me shifted, not because of what they said, but because of what they still refused to see, and I was done shrinking just to fit in their frame. They say ghosts don't haunt houses, they haunt memory. If that's true, then I was the most well-dressed ghost in the Magnolia Room. I sat at table 11 sipping flat water, nodding at half-hearted jokes, pretending I didn't hear the word security muttered near my shoulder. It didn't hurt, not anymore. It calcified into something colder, familiar. Across the room, Reagan twirled under string lights, the centre of a universe that never had room for more than one star. My mother laughed at something the wedding planner said, her hand brushing Reagan's shoulder. That used to be my spot, but I gave it up years ago. Or maybe it was never mine to begin with. I remembered sitting at the piano when I was 10, fingers stiff, playing a broken version of Für Elise. Reagan watched, waiting her turn. She played with ease. Everyone clapped. I was told I tried hard. I remembered getting my acceptance letter to West Point. I ran into the kitchen, uniform still crisp from senior photos, heart pounding. My mum glanced at it and said, "Well, don't they have something closer to home?" Reagan walked in minutes later with a flyer for a local pageant. She got a family dinner that night. I got silence. You don't forget moments like that. Not because they were loud, but because they taught you the volume of being dismissed. At 28, I became a captain. At 34, I was deployed during one of the bloodiest years of conflict in Syria. I coordinated a rescue under fire that saved over 60 people. I sent a photo to my mother. Not for praise, just so she'd know. She responded, "Be safe. Also, can you Venmo Reagan for the bridal shower deposit?" That was when something inside me folded, quietly, permanently. And yet I still came to this wedding, not to forgive, not to reconnect, but because part of me, the part that remembered what it felt like to hand her a piano sheet and hope, still wanted to be acknowledged. Later that night, after the last toast, I stepped outside. The air was thick with magnolia and regrets I didn't want to name. Behind me, laughter, music, clinking glasses. In front of me, the dark garden, empty chairs. The hum of cicadas louder than applause ever was in that house. I took off my shoes, grounded my feet in the soft earth. Have you ever stood outside a room full of people who share your blood and still felt like a stranger? Drop her if you've ever had to shrink just to make others comfortable. Because that's what I'd done. For years, I'd traded pieces of myself for peace. And I was done bargaining. The ballroom was dressed like a fantasy, gold-rimmed stemware, walls washed in warm uplighting, a floral arch that cost more than my first deployment bonus. Everything screamed curated perfection, and yet somehow I was the one that didn't fit. Table 11 had a clear view, not of the dance floor, not of the stage, but of the catering exit. Each time a server walked past with crab cakes or champagne, I felt the breeze. But not once did someone make eye contact, until the DJ's mic clicked on. Let's welcome the bride and groom for their first toast. Reagan glided up like she'd been cast in a romantic comedy, hair flawless, smile calibrated. Beside her, Daniel, her new husband, stood quietly, too quietly. Reagan lifted the mic like a trophy. First off, she said, voice syrupy sweet, thank you all for coming. Friends, family, even out-of-towners, we're so grateful. She paused. Then, with a glance at me, calculated, casual, she added, and even my big sister made it tonight. All the way from wherever she gives military PowerPoints now. Laughter. Not just polite. Real. Someone clapped. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip from my glass, set it down, and waited. Then my mother chimed in from table 2, voice just loud enough. She's the family rebel, but at least she's punctual. More laughter. This time I watched. No one looked away. No one stopped it. And just when the mic started to lower, he moved. Daniel, Reagan's husband, took one step forward, then another. The room quieted, not because they expected drama, but because something had shifted. He walked past Reagan, past the DJ, past my mother, past the groomsmen and the cousins and the string quartet. He stopped 3 feet in front of me, no words, just a salute, sharp, formal, regulation perfect. The room gasped, a sound that cracked the silence like glass. Then he spoke, clear and firm. This is Colonel Harper Quinn. She was my commanding officer in Kandahar. The reason I'm standing here today. Please, forgive my wife. Reagan's jaw dropped. The mic slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a thud that felt like a verdict. My mother stood so fast her chair tipped back, but I stayed seated, calm, measured, because this wasn't revenge, this was recognition. And just as the weight of it started to settle over the room, the screen behind the head table flickered to life. A video. Grainy combat footage. Harper Quinn in field gear, issuing orders under fire, dragging a wounded soldier across a blasted road, shielding civilians with nothing but her body. My body. The room was silent. Not out of respect, out of reckoning. The video faded to black. One line appeared. Leadership isn't claimed, it's earned. Then applause. Not for the bride, not for the couple, for me. And I didn't stand, because I didn't need to. The room had already risen around me. The ballroom was still buzzing when I stepped outside. Inside, the toasts had halted, the cake cutting postponed. Someone was trying to fix the projector, as if turning it off could erase what they'd just seen. I stood under the string lights near the garden terrace, letting the cool air settle the heat rising under my collar. My hands were steady, my heart quieter than I expected. Then I heard the click of low heels. She came alone. Nancy Quinn, mother, reputation curator, Southern grace incarnate. She carried a linen clutch like a weapon. Her blouse, cream with pearl buttons, had not one wrinkle. Of course. Harper, she said softly, you certainly made a statement. I didn't reply. She looked at the garden, at anything but me. The press is already calling it the salute heard around Charleston. Headlines everywhere. Some flattering, some not. I said nothing. The silence was deliberate. She took a breath. I wasn't prepared. None of us were. Not Reagan, not your father, if he were still here. She fainted, I said, my tone even. Nancy blinked. She has sensitivities. To truth, I asked, or to not being the only Quinn people noticed tonight? Her grip on the clutch tightened. I didn't come to fight, she murmured. No, I said. You came to contain fallout. She hesitated. Then, I was hoping maybe you could release a statement, clarify that we didn't fully understand your role, something neutral, to help the family save face. I looked at her, really looked. Let me get this straight. You want me to clean up your discomfort. Not a lie, just the optics. She flinched, just barely. You have to understand, she said. We didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to protect Reagan. You were always intense, hard to place. I wasn't intense, I said. I was visible. That's what made you uncomfortable. I pulled a leather folder from under my arm, opened it, slid a paper across the patio table between us. She didn't touch it. This is a report from the ethics board, I said. 7 years ago, I was passed over for my first star. No explanation, just a quiet black mark on my file. Later, we traced it to an anonymous tip. Her jaw clenched. Someone accused me of falsifying combat reports, of being politically promoted, of being unstable. I tapped the paper. Linguistic analysis, sentence structure, phrases. It was your voice, Mum, and Reagan's. 93% match, primary and secondary contributors. Her lips parted, then closed. You sabotaged me, quietly, efficiently. Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. I made mistakes, she whispered. No, I said. You made choices. She leaned forward, for once without control. I never stopped loving you. I looked down at the document. You just stopped calling. The silence that followed wasn't a fight. It was a funeral. For years, I said, I thought I had to earn your approval. That if I climbed high enough, led bravely enough, you'd see me. She said nothing. I finally understand. You saw me the whole time. You just didn't want to. Her hand hovered between us, reaching, hesitating, but it never landed. I stood, left the document on the table. If anyone asks why I stopped coming around, don't say I drifted, don't say it was complicated. Say the truth, you made a choice, and so did I. And with that, I walked away. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. The headlines rolled in faster than I could ignore them. Colonel silences wedding with one salute. Viral video of officer overshadowing sister's big day sparks debate. Military versus family when recognition comes from strangers. I never shared the video, never gave a comment, never explained, and yet it reached over 4 million views in a week. Reagan didn't post a single photo from her wedding. And my mother? She vanished from the group texts like smoke. But me, I found peace somewhere else. A month later, I moved to a quiet lake town in Oregon. No cameras, no toasts, just pine trees and sky and silence that didn't judge me for needing space. I bought a fixer-upper by the water, painted the porch myself, and started building something I never thought I'd have, a life without performance. I named the non-profit The Quiet Command. It's for veterans who weren't wounded by war, but by their own families, the ones who undermined, doubted, erased. We help them rebuild not just their careers, but their voice. Because sometimes the most brutal battles happen at dinner tables, not battlefields. A local boy from town drops off fresh eggs every Saturday. This morning, he asked shyly, "Are you really that colonel from the video?" I smiled. Once. He grinned, ran off barefoot, and didn't ask for a selfie. I sat on my porch, coffee warm in my hands, watching the lake ripple under the morning breeze. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. I still wear my stars sometimes, not for others, for me, because I earned them, not by fighting a war, but by surviving the silence that followed. Have you ever had to choose peace over family? Not out of hate, but out of self-preservation? Drop A if you've ever walked away, not to hurt them, but to finally protect yourself. Because I see you. And maybe now you see you too.